Thank you very much, Freak. And gentlemen, it looks like we are in for quite the series, given the way that it just started there, back and forth, and coming down to the wire there with SKT edging out ROX Tigers.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, honestly, it's great to cheer for your teams in your region, but cheer for great League of Legends. That's what we got in this game right here with ROX Tigers and SKT, like the highest level possible.
That ward over the back of the
I don't know about
the highest.
Okay, close to the highest level. It was game one. They were a little bit nervous, maybe.
And while Cloud9 didn't make it to the semifinals, there was a bit of Cloud9 flavor about what SKT were piloting in the bot lane. So before the tournament, when I asked about Ashe, because of course Ashe saw some nerfs just between patches, between playoffs and now, people said you can play it in one scenario. It's kind of decent against Caitlyn. And what we saw here was the Ashe Zyra that Cloud9 were famous for running way back in Season 3 when they came to the LCS. And it actually halved lane against a Caitlyn lane, Caitlyn Karma, which has a very big pushing power most of the time. And I think it's notable because suddenly, now that they've shown something that actually does quite well against the Caitlyn first pick that we saw this series, that we saw a lot recently, might be called into question.
Exactly. That other form of engage is going to be really important. If the games are going this long, one of those catches does determine the entire thing. And you're talking about Prey can play it also. You know, if Ben can play it, then Prey can also play it.
Definitely so. Definitely so.
So then, of course, I want to push us into the game here because we got a few replays to roll through. We talked earlier about ROX Tigers being a very early game-focused team, having that high bloodiness statistic. Of course, the first kills didn't come in until 12:30 into the game on a turnaround by the ROX Tigers.
Yeah, so this is a really good TP from Smeb. It's a follow-up from a gank they had just earlier where they forced the summoners away from Faker, and that's why it's so important to always, you know, re-gank. The timing on this ulti here from Smeb as well, just when Olaf ulti runs out, it is perfect. But before this, we saw that gank in mid lane fail. We saw the dive top lane as well, where a lot of skill shots were missed left and right by ROX Tigers. And that is kind of the thing. If you are the proactive team, you need to be able to execute when you pull off these proactive plays. Otherwise, you start falling behind.
I love that teleport so much because they were pinging it well in advance. And like, we need to figure out a way to set up this play. We know that we've snuck this ward in without Faker seeing it. And they had their eyes on that teleport point for so long.
A lot of forethought going into that one. Of course, our next replay comes around 20 minutes with SKT. 3 for 2 in the bot lane. ROX was able to salvage a couple ones here, but SKT domination stabbing back.
And this opens up with Peanut realizing he's in no man's land. That's why he used the repel to get close to the enemy just to start a fight. He bought enough time though, but this should have been a wipe realistically. The shockwave missing onto Bray, walking back. At this point, you're like, could have been 4-0. Faker goes for the exclamation point, but Kuro with the ghost kind of saved the whole situation for ROX.
And I love what Kuro does there too. He cuts them in half, so they separate the two members. They're able to clean them up, and ROX gain, you know, some kills back out of what could have been a disaster. We've seen plays like that turn the entire game. Like if that is a clean SKT dive, then get all the kills plus the turret. That is something we've seen them snowball all the way to victory.
Yeah, and if we go just like slightly back before the play happened, obviously SKT can chase and dive on the tower because Faker can move first. And that's kind of the big story of the early game for me, was how Faker was able to dominate 1v1. He got the tower as well. Yes, he got ganked once, and then the second time where he died, he still had full control mid lane. He had first item spike as well. He could roam first down to bot lane here. Kuro joins in later, but it's already too late. You're already giving up kills and you lose tower as well.
And we talked about mid lane, right? We talked about specifically Kuro showing the Aurelion Soul. It was something different. Victor's certainly not something different. Victor, for both Crown and Kuro, is a staple. It's kind of an established factor for SK Telecom. The Orianna looked confident. They played through the mid lane. It was kind of business as usual in the mid lane, especially for SKT.
Exactly. We talked about what's he going to drop to, looking at those pushing champions in the mid lane. Well, he was pushed in the entire time. Faker essentially solo killing the turret in mid lane by 15 minutes. That's insanity. But something else I want to talk about is ROX Tigers trading that third Infernal Dragon for a Baron plus a tower top.
Well, in this situation, they already lost the support. So I think in their mind, they're like, it's too risky to go in, walk into a river without any vision against Orianna as well, and try and stop the Baron. So just take that Infernal Drake instead, get the third one. It's kind of the best of a bad situation, really, for them. And it did help them in the late game.
Plus, I mean, it's a good game plan, right? It's a clear game plan. You have Poppy, you have Victor, and you have Caitlyn. That's such good siege defense. I mean, you line up the traps and try and wave clear, and Poppy can even try and clear out some. the thinking there, you start going to try and weather this SKT storm that's going to come off of the Baron, and that was where they weren't able to pull it off.
But of course, we did see SKT, kind of utilizing that macro gameplay that they've, that they have so well in having Duke or split in the top lane, running ROX around the map, creating that ward coverage for themselves in the enemy jungle, and making it very hard for ROX to kind of make their way out of the base.
And that's the thing we see so often from these top teams. Like late game, macro is near spot on. They make so few mistakes. Like SKT understand when Duke is split pushing, he's on a tower. Everyone else kind of take a step back, wait to see if someone goes to go for Duke. Okay, then step forward. Never really overextend. Duke never got caught out himself either. Great vision control at all times. And it's just communication, all of it. And it's also communication that set up that last Elder Drake fight, which basically starts with Faker forcing flash from the Victor. And then when you start the Elder Drake and start cutting down towards the bottom side, they have to, ROX Tigers has to run into the river, and Victor has no flash, and then Faker can actually win the game.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that Ace replay that you just mentioned, where SKT puts their foot down in game 1.
And of course, the Orianna from Faker is one that he played a lot at the start of his career. Actually, his career most played champion, even though he hadn't played it since summer season last year. We were waiting for the big shockwave. Big thing about casting an Orianna game is waiting for the ball control, waiting for the big shockwave, and this was that fight.
And this is why I put so much emphasis on clutch players. Faker and Bang. SKT have shown on the biggest stage they are reliable and they can come up with these plays. That's why discipline was such a big factor for me. Also, before that even happens, to get to that point where Faker can win the game, Banky has to hit this smite versus Peanut, because that would be a 6 Infernal Drake basically team if they're able to steal that smite, if Peanut is able to take that one away. And he's on Elise, who has execute damage. So
4 1/4.
Banky,
or 4.5 rather.
6 billion if you count in the true damage as well.
It's a lot of AD and AP.
But Banky hitting that smite is so incredibly important, because they just knocked out all of the damage from SKT.
All right, so let's talk about moving forward, though, now, because SKT is going to be subbing in Blank now in place of Banky even after that victory, and they'll be swapping to the blue side. So ROX Tigers here on this stage again, big stage against SKT. They've just been knocked down a peg. They're showing a little bit of jitters in game 1. How do they recoup?
So I think this is strategic. I mean, you can tell by the fact that Banky had a good game. They won and they still subbed in. The big story is when you're on red side, SKT are going to be banning Nidalee anyway. Peanut is undefeated on Nidalee in 2016. When you're on blue side, it's much better to have a Nidalee player, because now ROX have to use a ban on Blank's Nidalee. So strategically, it actually lines up really well. And it got Bengi, plenty of intel in game 1.
And I think that there is a problem here now with mid lane bans for ROX Tigers. First game they banned both Ryze and Syndra on blue side. They didn't want to first pick it. They wanted to first pick the Caitlyn very specifically. SKT, we know, can first pick Syndra if they want to. I wonder if ROX are sitting and looking at too many mid lane options here and being like, we need to get rid of Ryze because Faker is a monster on it. Syndra as well, because we don't trust Kuro to take that skill matchup in the mid lane. And then, of course, the Nidalee you mentioned. That might just be the 3 bans locked in already. And then SKT will have a lot of options. Either if they want to go Caitlyn, which they probably won't. Now we've seen Ashe come in against it, but you can go for your preferred jungle choice for playing as an option, or maybe the best top lane available like Jace.
Zyra, I think, is going to be extremely important as well moving forward. As you're talking about the ADs for the bottom lane, the supports determine so much of those matchups.
All right, well, just a few thoughts on what ROX can do to stab back here in Game 2. Worlds 2016 continues in just a few minutes, but before we go, we all know the pain of watching a win slip away on the Rift. And in this series, 5 League legends share their strategies for turning the game around. They are playmakers.
This is solo queue, so everyone make mistakes. But mistakes are opportunities. Like this. My top laner get ganked and died, so there's no KO. Hikarim wants to shove lane, more pressure, more gold, good for him. I already grabbed raids, so I know if they can see me or not. So I go top and get the wave. Turrets don't need gold, I join lane and Hikarim backed up. That's smart. I get the farm and I go back to do my job. Then Hikarim gets greedy for one more wave. Like I said, everyone make mistakes and Hikarim is gonna die for this one. It's solo queue, so Kha'Zix is probably not here. So I come back, I chase him down. I have Ghost, I have Q, I have ult. That makes it easy. I get the kill, I shove lane. Kao's alive again, and she can see that her lane is good, and she also gets TP. She looks around the map. She saw a good opportunity on bot. 3v2, easy kill, or dragon, whatever. And all that started with KO overextending and dying. Mistakes are opportunities, you know?
Dare to be different. Revel in the impossible. Introducing a little anarchy